Welcome to section 3. In this section, we're going to be covering post-production. Another word for post-production is editing. We're going to be teaching you kind of the basics of how to grab all your footage, all your sound, and throw it all together. So we're going to kind of show you different techniques as far as editing fast or editing slow, editing different tempos, and how that makes the movie have a different feel. Also kind of basic stuff of how to import footage, how to even get started. So today I'm going to be working in Final Cut Pro 10. There's lots of editing systems out there. I mean, there's stuff for your phone, there's stuff for your iPad, tons of different stuff for your computer. I mean, there's Final Cut Pro, there's Premiere, there's Avid, there's iMovie that's free for anyone that has a Mac. There's Windows Movie Maker, Vegas. There's definitely cheaper options and more expensive options. But the techniques that I'm going to be teaching you today, you can do in any operating system. It works with everything. So let's go ahead and get started and begin our project. So the first thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to start a new project. So every menu, there's always going to be a file, new project, or event. Every software kind of has a different name for it, but you're going to start with the new. In Final Cut Pro, it's going to be a new event, and we're going to call this Jordan. So now that we've created our new event, we're going to go to File, Import. This is where you're going to import all your media, all your footage, all your sound, everything that you're going to use to edit with. So I put all my stuff in a folder called Jordan New Hammocking. Here we go, New Hammocking. So I'll grab all this footage. I'm going to highlight it, everything, and then I'm going to go to import it. In every operating system, there's going to be sections where you actually have your media. So right here is the folder where I keep all my media. And this window is my actual screen where I'm seeing what's happening. And this window, we have all my editing functions. This is where I go to edit any of my clips, any of my audio. Down here are different effects that I can apply onto it. And here's the timeline. This is where all the magic goes on. This is where you're going to be throwing all your clips, doing all your edits, and this is where you're going to be exporting out your final product. So let's go ahead and start doing some edits. So here we go. So here's all the footage that we're going to be editing with. And I already kind of have an idea of the story that I want to be telling. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to grab, let's see, he's backing up, he's getting ready to drive in right there. I want to start my clip about right here. So what I'm going to do, again, this is in every operating system, you can set an endpoint. An endpoint is the beginning frame that you're going to start using. So in Final Cut, you can hit I to start that endpoint, or I could click it to create that endpoint, but I'm just going to hit I, it's a shortcut, and I'm going to hit play. I'm going to stop it right as he gets there. Now notice there's still footage at the beginning and end of this clip. Just because I filmed all of it doesn't mean I have to use all of it. So I really just want this short little part right here. So after I do that, I can drag it onto the timeline, and there we go, there's our magic. Now continuing with the story, I'm going to start here where he's kind of reaching into his keys. I'm going to get it right when he starts to turn off his car. There we go. Okay, so let's just say we dragged it in here. Let's zoom in this so you can see it. Now if you can see, there's lots of footage here. There's him getting ready. He's about to take out the key. Again, he's getting ready to open up the door, all that kind of stuff. We don't need to use all the footage. We're just cutting it up and chopping it up. So now if we go to our timeline, you can see it starts with him pulling up, stops the car, turns off the keys, and I'm going to trim this down a little bit. You can just drag the end of the clip and pull it. So like I was saying before, I was talking a little bit about the tempo of editing. There's lots of different tempos you can edit with. Just with music, how you can have a slower song compared to a really fast song. The music kind of fits the tempo of the editing. That's kind of where we get that phrase from. So if I were to start editing this really quickly with fast shots, it would make it more almost like an action sequence or something like that, because it's a fast tempo, it's upbeat, it's moving along. And if I were to move it at a slow tempo, it would create a whole different feel. It would make it a little bit more dramatic, almost a little romantic feel, slower, more intimate, because it's letting you capture, kind of, you're seeing the characters, you're seeing the story, and it's giving a much slower feel to it. Okay, so now let's look at some different styles of edits that we did with this same story. So let's go up here to the project. Let's look at the slow one first. Now let's see how just the different tempos of editing changes the entire story. So let's watch this. A slow ride up, he's taking his time. You see, everything is really drawn out. It's really taking its time. It's showing each clip almost from beginning to end of him taking things out. Now, sometimes if you're doing a certain film, this style works. If you really need to show what the actor's doing, if there's a certain line that he's saying. But for a film like this is just too slow. It's too boring. As you're watching this, it's already starting to put me to sleep. It's just boring. So then Officer Sean pulls up, kicks him out. Again, slow edits, staying on one shot for a very long time. And we go to the end. Boom. Now let's look at a fast cut. Let's see what this story looks like cut quickly together. Now I'm going to start with the same kind of establishing shot, and then we're going to jump into it. Notice it didn't even show him shutting the door. Quick cuts with him. It's just little snippets of time that we're showing you. And so if I were to be putting music to this, it'd be kind of fast music, fast tempo that kind of fits this kind of editing. And then Jordan jumps back into his hammock, and then it is over. So you can kind of see with the two different styles of tempo, it's really changes the feel of the film. Now, looking at this story, I don't know if it's necessarily needs to be this fast, and I don't think it needs to be that slow. It kind of needs to be an in-between. So I did another cut that's just called Jordan Hammock, and we'll see in some of the shots it really takes its time, and then other shots it's kind of fast. When you're getting into a lot of details of finessing with like a pin, or right here he's finessing with his hammock, his straps and stuff like that, that's really not that important. We can cut through it pretty fast. The main thing is just to show the audience that he's doing it. So if you'll see some of these shots, I cut really fast, but the shots that are more important, more intimate, I leave longer. So let's take a look at this one. This is kind of the cut that I did that I think fits the right tempo. It's the same shots, him driving up, takes off the keys. See, I left that shot a little longer. And then these shots, I continue to edit fast because it's really not that important. I just want to show you snippets of him doing it. But now here, it's going to take a longer time for him to kind of get in the hammock, and it's resting, it's transitioning into the next scene. And you'll see now this scene is cut a lot slower than the last one, but it's still decently fast tempo. And then I hold on the last shot for a little longer. So you can see kind of with those different styles how it really changes the story just with the tempo. Now let's kind of talk into some more basic editing techniques while cutting in the timeline. Let's just say I was looking at this clip here. It's a decently long clip, and I decide, you know what, I want to chop that up. So I'm going to zoom into this shot. And again, all these techniques that I'm doing right now, you can do with any operating system. So let's just say this shot is too long and I want to cut it. Well, how would I do that? Well, in this operating system, it's called a blade tool. I can hit B and it cuts to it, or if I go over here and I click this little arrow button, I can go to blade. And now if you'll see my cursor turns into a little blade tool, and I can chop and edit and cut clips however I want. And then I can delete those clips out to make things shorter. In other operating systems, some of it's called an edit, some of it's called scissors. These tools are used in every operating system. They just kind of have different names or different shortcuts on the keyboard. I can also use this trim tool if I want to adjust kind of the length of clips while grabbing from one clip and taking from another. I can do stuff like that. Or if I want to grab clips and put it on top and I wanted to layer things to kind of give it a faster feel. So now let's go into how to sync a clip, how to sync video with audio. This can be very hard sometimes, or it can be very easy. I know at the beginning we talked a little bit about a slate, how you marker a shot. That will help a lot with editing, with syncing up video and audio. Unfortunately, we did not have a slate when we did this, and so we just kind of filmed it really fast and filmed the audio. So I'm going to show you, if you don't have a slate, how to match that stuff up. So let's just start a new project. We'll just call this audio test. So here's our blank new timeline. Okay, so this clip here, you get water running. Jordan's getting into his hammock. But if you hear that wind just doesn't sound good because the audio coming from this clip is on the camera, and the microphone on the camera is never super good quality. It distorts a lot and it's really hard to edit and kind of fix up. So we filmed this also with a boom pole. So let's just say we got this shot. That's what we want to use. Well, at the beginning, I hear Chasen yell, action. Let's see if we can hear it.
And action.
So you can hear him say, and action. And then the clip rolls. And it goes. Okay, so let's drag this to our timeline. Well, now, let's find the audio for this file. Somewhere around here. Okay, so here's the clip. You can hear the water running. Now, what I'm going to do to try to sync this is I'm going to find where Chasen says, and action.
And action.
You hear it right there. He says, and action.
Oh. And action.
Okay, now what I'm going to go do is I'm going to find right on that wavelength. Let's zoom into this clip. Okay, now you can see right here is where he shouts, and action.
And action.
I'm going to go right at the beginning of it. I'm going to set my end point.
And action.
Right when he says, and action. Now if I go down here.
And action.
Right where he says, and action. I'm going to put a marker that hits M, and it puts a marker. Again, this will be in any operating system. You can put markers on your timeline. And I can drag this right where he says, and action.
And action.
And now that is synced. I can trim this down a little bit because we don't need him saying that. Let's move this to really at the beginning. I can turn off this audio from the camera. And now you just have good audio from the boom pole and the video, and it's all synced together. Now you can do this with any clips. A lot of times you'll hear the lines, if someone says a puh or a tuh, something that has a very distinct sound, you can match up those sounds together with the video, with the audio from the video, and then the audio from your boom pole or your lav or whatever you're recording your audio with, and that's how you can match it and sync it. And then boom, your video and your audio is synced the entire time, and there we go. Now this is just one way to sync audio and video. There's multiple ways to do it. Like Final Cut, it has a special tool where I can just select the two and sync it together all on its own, and it does it by itself. Other operating systems do that, but not quite as well. The best way to sync it is with a marker, getting a loud clap, and you can find that wavelength. They'll have a big spike, like if you look here, you can see a spike in that wavelength right there. They'll have a clap noise, and so the clap noise will be both on the camera audio and on the boom audio, and that's how you can line those up and sync your video with your audio. Okay, so I have some goofy music right here that I'm gonna put on the bottom of my track that I'm gonna use. And as you can see, it's not quite long enough, so you know what? I'm just going to drag it on there again. I'm just going to loop it. And there we go. It should fit the whole thing. Now, when I play through, I'll have music on it. Okay, so there we go. We have some basic edits in here. We got some cuts. We have some music going on in the background. This looks good. Let's just say this is my finished product and I'm happy. Well, now we can go to File, Export. So if I go up here to File, Share, I'm going to name this Jordan's Hammock. Now there's lots of different codecs. The best codec that we use is H.264. It is the different ways that it compresses the video to turn it into one solid file. There's lots of different files you can use here. Apple ProRes H2. Those are all different codecs of how you render files. They're just different sizes and different compression rates. I won't get into a lot of that right now. Let's just stick with H.264. That's the most simple version to export with. So that's the file that we're going to do it. We want video and audio. All of that looks good. That's the size that it's going to be, 138 megs. Okay, so once you check all your settings and it all looks good, and we're going to hit next, and now it's going to ask us where to save it. I want to save this on my desktop. It's going to be called Jordan's Hammock, and I save, and there it goes. It's going to begin to export onto my desktop. Remember, editing is just another technique used to help tell the story. Just because you like fast cuts doesn't mean that you always need to cut fast, or just because you like slow cuts doesn't mean you need to cut slow. You need to edit the best way that tells the story, just like you need to film it the best way that tells the story. The editing is just another stage to help you get your point across and share the emotion of the story that you're trying to tell.